Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah. A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak. So what I'm going to talk about today are the world wars that we've had throughout history. Throughout the last 110 years, we've had ourselves a series of wars that had taken place around the world, simply titled the World Wars. Now I feel like that is a very fitting term, but it is somewhat modest in terms of what we've had throughout the last century or two, based on all the types of wars that we've had in our country, as well as throughout the rest of the entire planet. But I feel like that the point that I'm going to get to here right away is that the world wars probably will be never ending at some point. Because at some point, we might get ourselves yet another world war. Although I will actually go ahead and jump a little bit back to the past, because I feel like I should disclose something really quick. So, for those of you who were in the Vietnam War, and for those of you who are actually watching my video and getting to know about the Vietnam War, that war managed to last for a total of 10 years, 1965 to 1975. But, here's the catch. Because I had looked into some more recent research that had talked about the fact that what countries were involved during that particular war, there were at least 21 different countries that were serving during this particular war. At the same time that we were already dealing with communist places like Russia and Korea, we've also had several other countries come in to help us fight in the war. We've had places like Spain and Canada, as well as France and a few others. So, I feel like that just makes me jump to the conclusion that the Vietnam War should be known, regardless of what it is, as World War III. Because despite the fact that the body count was somewhat not in as similar to what World War II had back in the 40s, World War III should be associated with the Vietnam War, as there was in fact more than 20 countries involved at the time that it happened. And it did last for a whole decade, which is even longer than World War I or World War II. So I feel like that should just be the thing. World War III should be given to the Vietnam War, or at least it should be associated with the Vietnam War. So I feel like that in today's time, since we have all of these facts put in together, we should be able to clarify that the Vietnam War must now be known as the Third World War that had taken place in our history. Because, of course, it's not only because of the fact that there were so many countries involved during that war, and it was not just America going up against Vietnam, but it was also a pretty large time for communism to take place. So, of course, the Cold War stuff started happening around the same time that we've had ourselves a lot of stuff going on with Nam, but again, there's just lots of stuff going on around that would really lead us to feel that the Vietnam War should be regarded as World War III, simply because of all of those facts that we had recently discovered about the war itself, and about everything that had happened during that time. But, what I'd want to say real quick is that, when could we be expecting a World War IV? And now people would want to call it World War III because, of course, the Vietnam War is just not actually known as World War III, but I had already established that World War III should be given to the name of the Vietnam War. So, World War IV is what we're going to be looking for today. And not so much World War III because of what I already said. So, World War IV, who knows when that could happen? And who knows what or who we would be facing? Of course, we already got ourselves our ideas of how one day we could end up facing against Korea, and that at some point we could have ourselves other enemies that we could tackle onto. But of course, there's always the likelihood that even another civil war in America would break out, and that some part of our own country would end up being separate from the rest of this landmass. Though I can't really say much else about how we might have ourselves another civil war within a few hundred years, but to say that another world war will take place, it's just anybody's guess. And who knows how many bodies we're going to have that are left for dead in that time that it would happen. I really would not want to see the light of day when something like this would end up breaking out. It would really not be something for me to enjoy. Another world war that would break out, and the time that I'm alive would be almost ludicrous given to the fact that, well, we keep our economy and our government as stable as possible, but it's just anybody's guess. What could happen during World War IV? And what kind of technology would we be able to use to our advantage? And what kind of technology would end up becoming useless over time? I guess it's just anybody's guess out there, but I feel like that the main point I'm going to try to build up here at this point is that a World War IV would most definitely be likely within the next 100 years or so. Because anybody could come out and fight America. Anybody can come out to, well, engage in some sort of combat. Anybody could try to, start any kind of war whenever possible. But the fact is that we're just not having much luck around here. Although there is probably going to be the likelihood that at one point we might end up fighting against China, as there has been recent news telling us that one day a military draft will take place after the events of China trying to take over the Philippines. Because there is going to be something like that occurring someday. And, of course, you can always research that for yourself if you don't trust what I'm saying, but I'm just simply pointing out the fact that it might end up being the link to another world war happening within about 50 years or so. Or even more, depending on how much we can handle at this point. So, I feel like that's just about it that I probably have to talk about here, based on the world wars that we've had so far. There have been so much that we had managed to take over based on both world wars that have happened, as well as the Vietnam War, which I'm still knowing it as World War III because of the more recent news and the more recent topics that relate to how it was a really big war back then. For a whole decade, in fact. So, I'm Jay Nowak, and I will be currently signing off here, ready to go for yet another episode, though. And if you want to see more go down on my channel, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.